the pleasure of introducing now Professor Lawrence Fung of Stanford University, who will lead a panel discussion with colleagues Michael Fieldhouse, Hiren Shukla, Nicole Radiswell, and Sandra Healy. And just a note of thanks to everybody who's tuned in and has joined the panel today, because we appreciate the different time zones and things that can be difficult. For some people it's the morning, some people it's the evening. And no doubt you'll all enjoy this discussion for this afternoon. So I'll hand you over to Professor Fung now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Colman, for the kind introduction. It's really wonderful to be here and with my distinguished panelists here who is coming from 4 different time zones, 3 different continents. This is really amazing. So in the next hour, we're going to focus on a couple of things. One area of discussion will be on benefits and challenges of neurodiversity employment initiatives. And then after that, we're going to talk about novel partnerships between academia and industry on neurodiversity employment initiatives. And hopefully, we're going to have just about 15 minutes left for Q&A if there is such a, hopefully we can actually do the Q&A. Colman, are we able to do that?
Yeah, if people want to put questions into the chat, I'll moderate and put them to the panel as they come in.
All right, wonderful. Thank you. So it's my pleasure to introduce my 4 panelists, and then I'm going to ask them to start talking about the initiatives that they are involved in. First, I'd like to introduce Michael Fieldhouse, who is a dear friend. He has 20 years of experience in strategy, change management, and cybersecurity in the information and cybersecurity technology industry. And he has worked extensively with private organizations and the Australian government. Just about 6-7 years ago, Michael identified that many people with autism have an eye for detecting patterns, making them uniquely qualified to make contributions to technology teams. In partnership with the Department of Human Services in Adelaide in Australia, Michael initiated the DXC Dandelion program to provide skilled employment for people living with autism spectrum disorder. Through Michael's leadership, the program has since expanded to other government departments and private organizations. Today, he has employed over 100 people on the autism spectrum. Michael holds a Bachelor of Applied Science and Computer Technology and a Master's of Business Administration from Harvard Business School. He has been appointed by La Trobe University as adjunct professor in cybersecurity, and he is also an advisor to Dow Jones as well as Wall Street Journal. Next, I'd like to introduce Sandra Healy, who is the founding director of the Center of Excellence for Diversity and Inclusion at Dublin City University. Prior to joining DCU, Sandra's career has spanned for 20 years in the global tech industry. Sandra is also the founder of Inclusio. She has led the team to develop a dynamic new platform that combines psychology, artificial intelligence, and technology, empowering people to thrive and their authentic selves at work. Sandra holds an honors degree in psychology and a first-class master's in organizational psychology from DCU. Over the past 13 years, she has championed and driven diversity and inclusion practice in Irish industry and is considered as one of Ireland's leading experts. Next, I'd like to introduce Dr. Nicole Radiswell. Nicole is a senior Vice President of Quality and Strategy at Ultranauts, where she leads the development of the company's quality engineering services and technical capabilities. Ultranauts was named a Fast Company World-Changing Idea and MIT Soft Challenge winner. And now Ultranauts has employees in 25 states across the United States. 75% of the employees in Ultranauts are on the autism spectrum. Before joining Ultranauts, Nicole was a vice president of the quality and supply chain practice at Intellex, and she has 25 years of experience with quality and data science in software, telecom, and many other industries. She is a former tenured associate professor of production systems and data science at James Madison University, a fellow of American Society for Quality, a certified Six Sigma Black Belt, a national examiner of the American Society for Quality, and a national examiner for the Malcolm Beldridge National Quality Award, and editor-in-chief of Software Quality Professional Journal with PhD in Quality Systems from Indiana State University. She is one of the influential voices in American Society for Quality. Last but not least, I'd like to introduce Hiran Shukla, who is the automation and innovation leader, as well as the leader for Neurodiverse Center of Excellence in Ernst & Young. Hiran's experience spans more than 20 years across the fields of accounting, strategy, automation, innovation, and information technology. He currently leads the internal automation and innovation at Ernst & Young and is founder of the Neurodiverse Center of Excellence. Hiran has helped unlock human potential to drive innovation across emerging technologies, blockchain, AI, cybersecurity, and analytics. Hiran has helped to lead the EY Global Intelligent Automation Hub, Automation Central, which has built more than 2,000 digital assets for the global organization, helping Hub, Automation Central, helping drive innovation across emerging technology and building the foundation for harnessing data for machine learning and predictive analytics. Hiran is a strategic link at EY, responsible for converting neurodiversity inclusiveness efforts into commercial application for exceptional client service and tangible ROI. His efforts allow EY to bring this innovation model to its largest clients and rapidly open additional neurodiverse centers of excellence across their global footprint. So with this long introduction, I'm going to transition to the next few questions. So first, I'd like to introduce Sandra Healy to talk about the benefits and challenges of neurodiversity employment initiatives that you have been involved.
Thank you, Lawrence, and thank you for that fantastic introduction. And I know it's morning where you are, and good afternoon and good morning to people who have tuned in today. So Lawrence, you're asking me a question about the work we're doing around in DCU, so I might just take a few moments to take you through that. So, and I think one of our academics, Dr. Mary Rose Sweeney, spoke at the conference yesterday where she talked about our journey to becoming the first autism-friendly university. And it was many years ago that Mary Rose worked with As I Am, who I think you may have heard of as well, throughout over the last couple of days. And they developed the Autism Friendly University certification. And essentially that involves a set of principles as a learning environment that we're committed to make sure that we universally design the learning environment to make sure that it's more accessible. As part of that, we have a coordinator on campus, so Fiona Early, whose responsibility it is to make sure that we embed the principles that we've committed to into every aspect of the learning environment. And, you know, it's interesting, I suppose, you know, I'll talk to you in a moment about we're trying to take that out into the workplace, because really what we're finding is that as young people are coming into higher education, you know, the expectation is that the environment is going to be able to help them to succeed and to thrive. So it's up to us as educators to make sure that we don't put barriers in the way. So part of that really is making sure that every single aspect of the learning environment, so the physical environment, but also from a curriculum perspective, making sure that we're not putting barriers in the way. So simple things we've done around that, Lawrence. Last year we launched our U building, so our new student hub, 16 million new building, and it's the first universally designed end-to-end building on campus. And I would encourage you, if any of you have had an opportunity to visit DCU, not at the moment, maybe in the new year when we can visit campuses, you might come and have a look at the U building and just to have a look at the unique way that that building has been put together. And then within, you mentioned about the Centre of Excellence. So we established the Centre of Excellence for Diversity and Inclusion in 2018. And essentially what we do in the centre, we work with employers around all different aspects of diversity and inclusion. And we had quite a lot of employers coming to us to learn more about the work we're doing around the Autism Friendly University. And it made sense for us to start on the journey of the Autism Friendly Workplace. So over the last, I think it's probably taken us about 18 months to get it to where it is now, working with our colleagues across the university and working with Adam Harris and his team and As I Am, we have developed the model around autism friendly workplace. And what we're doing at the moment now is seeking employers to come on board with us and kind of work through the journey of that. So essentially what would autism friendly workplace look like? So some of the elements of it are to identify how we can support employers to better accommodate different needs. The second piece would be around raising awareness of differences and, you know, creating environments where people feel safe and encouraged to disclose. So to make sure that they're set up for success when they're in the learning environment or in the working environment. And the second thing is around building capacity and acceptance. So that's be with the people managers and the people in the organization. Another project we worked on with employer, it was actually with Indeed, who are one of our founding members of the centre. And we did a year-long piece of research, industry-based research in 2019, and we looked at self-identification in the workplace. So what could employers do around self-identification, in particular around hidden disabilities, to encourage people to disclose, and what could people managers do to make sure that they're a step ahead and make sure that if somebody does disclose, that they actually know how to deal with that in an efficient and sensitive manner. And the second piece of work that we produced to that project was a hiring manager's guide to neurodiversity. And within that guide, it was very much around how do you universally design the hiring process so that people don't have to disclose what can be very personal things about themselves and they haven't even come into the organization yet. All of those resources, all the resources we develop actually with all our partners are available on the Centre of Excellence website. So we would encourage anybody listening and who's interested in seeing some of that work, you might visit the Centre of Excellence website. Thank you, Lawrence.
Thank you, Sandra. Michael, can you tell us your perspectives on the benefits and challenges that you have faced in running the Dandelion program now for 6 years?
Yeah, thanks, Lawrence, and thanks for inviting us. And I'm very happy to share what our kind of our program has been doing. We started our program in 2012. We launched it then, and we did about a year's worth of research. We launched it in 2014. So we've got a bit over 150 people now in the program, and I think one of the things we've been very focused on is longitudinal research. So some of the information that actually comes from our longitudinal research, which is done by La Trobe and which is also available through Cornell University, is very much focused on which I'll go over some of the benefits. One of it's obviously we see the benefits of inclusion, which is just, I think, they're having a very diverse workforce adds to innovation, adds to benefits in regards to culture, adds to in grades to greater kind of diversity of thought, which I think which are all critical elements to driving a competitive advantage for organisations. They're things that have definitely come through. It's kind of one thing that the things we didn't expect to come through through the research we found was really we monitored 188 co-workers, and they really felt that it was very important that the organisation represented the community. That was a very important theme that came through, and we saw effectively employee engagement increase as well. So that came through the actual research study. That was a very big part of it. The other kind of other points that came through was that employers, managers themselves actually effectively increased their capability. So there was actually an increase in capability in regards to really dealing with diversity, but they felt that their capability increased. But with some of the challenges that really came through over the longitudinal research study was probably the number one, which is probably the elephant in the room, but which is really not really talked about, was mental health. So mental health is the number one challenge when it comes to sustainable employment. So that was a very critical element that came through our research over that time. And another kind of other challenges were making sure that the co-workers and managers understood the differences between autism, or it could be attention deficit disorder, or dyslexia, but actually knew the difference between those and actually other mental health issues such as anxiety. So that was another big challenge. And the other thing was actually a constant level of training within the actual workforce. So as people move forward or moved within the organisation, there was also the ability to get retrained and actually upskilled as well in regards to neurodiversity. And neurodiversity was, it's not just just thinking about autism, was actually dyslexia, and also things such as other things like attention deficit disorder, or even thinking about bipolar. So there was kind of a number of other things that kind of was ensuring that there was an upskilling occurring at that time.
Thank you, Michael. With that, it's a good segue to Hiran. Same question, and in your organization, you have built a big enterprise on really making neurodiversity a competitive advantage in UI. So can you state some of the benefits that are more kind of beyond only autism that most of us are talking about? What are some of the additional benefits that you have observed for hiring people that have other neurodevelopmental conditions? And what are some of the challenges that come with it?
Thank you, Lawrence, and very excited to be here. So I hope everyone is doing well. Back in 2015, when I was taking on a role at EY to help drive innovation. And I think when we think about innovation, lots of discussion around creativity, reimagining the future, being able to disrupt yourself, as well as having the continuous learning muscle to absorb and apply new process, new technology, and apply this in the workplace. And it was very interesting, Lawrence, that to no coincidence, at the same time, is when I first came across this term neurodiversity, for which I don't have any personal connection to. What intrigued me as a business leader, and then in a personal standpoint, was this unique, hardwired ability to see problems and opportunities differently than the majority of our workforce and our population. And if we think about the umbrella term, Lawrence, as you say, around neurodiversity, dyslexia, autism, Asperger's, ADHD, dyspraxia, dyscalculia, dysgraphia, we know that inherent in all of these diagnoses are these unique abilities when applied, where there's obviously interest, aptitude, and acumen, that would produce exceptional results. And that was the hypothesis that we launched 5 years ago, thinking that if there is a way to create the psychological safety required for all individuals, but particularly for the neurodivergent population, to allow them to not have to mask, to not have to camouflage, but to be themselves, that we would unlock innovation capacity. And I'm very, very happy to say that today we are not only producing that at an accelerated rate for EY, but we are actively now taking that to the business community and engaging with academia, government, and nonprofit in the journey. And so from a benefit perspective, it's very interesting, and Michael used the term on the competitive advantage. I would wholeheartedly agree that in today's day and age, we think about an exponential organization, small footprint, very big impact. We are seeing EY's neurodiverse centers of excellence, in fact, having that as we today have footprints in the US, Canada, and in India, while we are launching in Poland and Spain, and looking at locations around the world. This amazing and untapped talent pool is available. And frankly, where we have created and built the trust models along with local partnerships, we realize that these support systems are producing, again, very unique innovation capacity when we apply it to the data and technology agenda. But I would say, Lawrence, the benefits extend even past some of the traditional areas from a business perspective, because many of us, particularly in today's pandemic world, often face a crisis of connection, feeling of isolation, Michael's point around mental health. But we also see a very deep-seated need for belonging and purpose. And we think this is the evolution of diversity and inclusion. Diversity and inclusion often is, I think, just looking at the different segments and are they at the table. But I think when an individual has a true sense of belonging, they're bringing their whole self to work. And I think the power in, again, being yourself and not having to mask, our neurodivergent team members are extremely brave and courageous because they come to work and they allow themselves to be, fully represented. And I think it's a very interesting way. It's actually giving others, and it's empowering others outside of the neurodivergent community to also feel a great sense of belonging and purpose and almost permission. And so we're finding that as, again, my colleague Michael said, it's galvanizing your employee base. It is extremely galvanizing to your community and to your client base and your customer and your future recruits. And so we're finding tremendous benefits. Very quickly, I'll touch on the challenges is very interesting. Information is often too much and too little at at the same time. And so we're, as an employer, also trying to sort through what information to find. It is further complicated. Every geography we go to, there's a different set of stakeholders and players, and there seems to be a real lack of consistency. So we would find service providers in some areas very knowledgeable and engaged, in others not, and to no surprise, they just don't have bandwidth. Often we're finding the adult communities are lacking support because most of the support is going on K through 12 individuals. And so the last piece of it is clearly organizational change. Large organizations like EY with 300,000 individuals around the world in 700 cities, making these changes, you do them a small step at a time, but you want to have them to be exponential so that the 30th step is the one that goes all the way around the world. And these are ones that often look very small, but organizational change, I think, is difficult. So Lawrence, I'll hand it back to you now.
Thank you, Kieran. I have to say DXC technology and EY are really some of the real prime examples and that have led us to a better place already. And thank you for both of you for being leaders in the last 6-7 years. So next, I'm going to actually show a pre-recorded video made by Nicole. Let me share screen. And as you know, Ultranauts has a very different model compared to EY and DXC technology, and it's wonderful to understand what the new model is through Nicole's words. So I'm going to share, sorry, let me fix one thing.
Good afternoon. My name is Nicole Radziwill, and I'm the SVP of Quality and Strategy at Ultranauts. And in case you're not already familiar with us, we're a professional services firm focusing on quality assurance and quality engineering for software and data. And if you need to make sure that your software or your data are meeting expectations, definitely give us a shout. We would love to help your company out. Ultranauts is now almost 8 years old. It will be 8 years old as of next summer. The company was started in New York City by 2 MIT engineers, and they knew that neurodiversity could be a competitive advantage. So they started by offering professional services in functional and manual software testing, and then branched out into accessibility testing. And now we've evolved our offerings into a suite of highly technical services, and we're represented in many of the states and at least one Canadian province, and the majority of us are autistic. We're growing a culture where early career analysts and engineers and new entrants to the quality profession, they can all get great mentorship from more senior autistic colleagues, which is really exciting. And the result has been a good one too. Teams are consistently helping clients get the job done, and we saw strong growth in this past year, even through the beginning of COVID, without a significant drop later in the year. And this is all thanks to the support of our client champions who believe in our integrity and the quality of our work, and who act as solid advocates as we grow. And as you can see, we've worked with some large global companies and in roles that in many cases just wouldn't be desirable or sustainable for a lot of autistic people. But with our all remote business model and supportive champions, we all make it work together, even helping clients take steps towards building the universal workplace that helps everyone thrive. And that's our secret sauce. When you honor neurodiversity and create an environment where people like me can not only be authentic, but feel comfortable being authentic, that's huge. And it's also a catalyst for innovation. Like our Ultranauts colleague, Marcel Ciampi says, this breaks down the barriers of constraint. It helps organizations be more innovative. Marcel has really been a driving force in creating the Ultranauts environment we have today. And that environment has 4 key characteristics. First, we approach our practices mindfully and design for inclusion and neurodiversity, including an approach we call inclusive agile. We care a lot about employee well-being. We choose flexibility over rigidity, and we aim to be as transparent as possible. We've done a lot of work this year on inclusive agile with workshops and sessions and practical experimentation, and a team of Ultranauts just published a peer-reviewed article that fully grounds this approach in theory. Some of the main precepts of this approach are to focus on stress reduction, accentuate collaborative planning, and making materials accessible, to cultivate individual agency while at the same time emphasizing progress as a team. We make alternative forms of communication the norm, and we destigmatize self-care. In 2021, we're going to develop these methods further and help companies proactively manage change when they start using and evaluating this more inclusive approach. And if you would like to read more, send me an email or friend me on LinkedIn so we'll have a connection, and I'll send you the PDF when we receive it from the journal next week. Thank you so much for coming to today's event, and I look forward to becoming acquainted with more of you.
Nicole, would you like to add a few more words in addition to your prepared presentation?
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing I'm going to add is complete trivia. Since this conference is based in Ireland, I just wanted to share that a couple years ago, my mother did a DNA test, and we discovered that by DNA, she's 98% Irish. And then we dug a little bit farther. We had no idea about her family beyond her grandparents, and turns out absolutely everyone is from County Mayo. So I just want to say I'm happy to be here with all of you today, and looking forward to continued discussion and Q&A.
Thank you, Nicole. So now in the next maybe 15 minutes or so, I'd like to just start off with answering this question. For each of you, if you can answer the mainly is 2 questions. The first question is, what is your organization doing in any partnerships between your company and academia? And what do you want to see more happening in such relationships? So, Michael, would you like to start first?
Yeah, happy to start first, Lawrence. Thanks for that. Yeah, we've got probably 3 approaches to academia. One is from a research perspective. So we've been probably engaged with academia since 2014. We're reviewing our program and having that as looking at the evidence that actually comes from that, and actually all the learnings. So I think that's been a really hallmark of the Dandelion program, of us kind of continually, innovating and kind of reviewing all the kind of critical feedback that's come through. So we get a voice of the participants. We get, and that's kind of structured in a way that we can get data, and that allows us to then kind of really develop new tools and new structure with academia. So we've kind of worked with them, develop new strength-based assessment tools, which we've been working through, and we're going through another iteration, which we hope to do, as you probably know, Lawrence. We're going through another version, hoping to go through another version of that. Looked at developing, support processes. So we've been very focused on building, which has probably been our biggest thing, our biggest work effort for the last 2 or 3 years, is around a mental health program for people that are neurodiverse. So that's something that's just finished, which we're now kind of working with academia to build out that into a more programmatic structure. So that's been a big piece of ours. So that really allows us to underpin the program. And then there's the second part of it. We've got a relationship with Untapped and the Neurodiversity Hub that actually brings together a large amount other academic or higher education providers to allow us to actually have a pathway into our program. So that allows us to really build a community of practice, but also a pathway to get into our program. So that's probably the second thing. And probably the third one we're actually been very much focused on is work experience for higher education students. So yes, we have our employment program, but we've probably done almost 80, maybe 90 students that have come from higher education and actually given them work experience. And we're hoping to scale that out. We're doing that at the moment with the Australian government to hopefully broaden that out to a very much more larger population. So we're aiming at a population of about 250,000 at the moment. So we're kind of working through building a very much more scaled work experience program for higher education students which are neurodiverse. So they're kind of really our kind of three major pillars with academia.
And do you see any additional opportunities that you feel important, and whether or not it's like maybe it's very difficult to achieve, but if that's like very worthwhile angle that you think is in your radar?
Yeah, I think that I hope more programs have academic or have more evidence-based research programs underneath them. So that will actually allow for more publication of what actual data is around their programs. And so therefore everyone can learn. I think that's critical. So I think for people, that are thinking about building a program, I would say, it's critical to have academia, have that academic research behind it. So it's helped us out, amazingly in regards to, going ahead and actually innovating the program and actually having, I think, a good clean set of eyes around the program. So I think that's critical. So, I think one of the things we've been, we're very grateful of is Project Search obviously in Virginia. That was allowed us to actually build on, we were able to build on top of that program because there actually was academic research behind it. I think the other part is actually focusing on research problems that, that really are around, certain elements around support, around onboarding, training, and also selection. So I think there's focusing on elements like that. And I think the biggest thing for us, obviously being a bit more mature, is around that support element. I think making sure that there's tools there to support individuals for the actually more longer term, which I think is critical.
Thank you, Michael. Hiran, what's your take on these couple of questions?
Yeah. Michael so elegantly stated a few of the areas that I would wholeheartedly concur with. I'll tell you a little bit of what we've been doing at EY, partnering with academia. We realize that the pipeline of neurodiverse students will really need to be cultivated between the business community and the academic community. And there is a gap right now. Those students are not receiving exposure via internships. They're probably not receiving, in many cases, the type of mock interviews, for example. And I'm talking about more traditional organizations. Obviously, we've got some advanced universities, programs that are here today. But we've been working with universities to really create an explicit area for students to see what post-academic life could look like. What does working life actually look like? And I think it's very powerful when the neurodiverse students meet neurodiverse workers. There seems to be a very amazing type of, maybe it's a role modeling, but it seems to be a great way for individuals to be able to vision what life could be like. And I think we're trying to provide, obviously pre-pandemic and then hopefully post-pandemic, exposure to physical environments. And that doesn't mean we are asking individuals, students, to say, you will have to adjust to this. I think we're actually projecting to them and advocating that you will need some adjustments, and that is what the workplace is there for. It is your right to ask for accommodations, and frankly, the better you feel at work, the more productive you'll be. So hence, this is mutually beneficial. And I think there's a stigma there in between in asking for accommodations that needs to be overcome. So while we are working in developing the talent pool with universities, we're also working with a number of them on case studies. And these are case studies that are research-based on the power of truly diverse, multi-dimensional teams. I've posted a link into the chat for a recent thought leadership piece with some items that we've just put out on ey.com. But I think that it really is the academic voice that helps us substantiate much of what we are seeing in the workplace. So there's a lot of room for improvement though, Lawrence, because we're finding that we're lacking a bit of a coalition between the academic world. And as we think about navigating geography to geography, city to city, country to country, it often becomes a feeling that we're starting all over again. And somehow we would love to figure out how can there be a tighter connection between the academic world that would allow global organizations like EY to maybe help accelerate some of the employment of neurodiverse individuals in other countries. So, Lawrence, I'll hand it back to you.
Thank you, Kieran. So, Nicole, what similar question? What do you see the academia industry partnerships been doing in your organization, and what do you want to see more happening?
Yeah, absolutely. So Ultranauts is just starting industry academia partnerships, and right now they're mostly focused on providing job readiness training for early career entrants. What I'd like to emphasize though are 3 opportunities for advancing this body of knowledge. One of them is applying human-centered organizational design to environments with cognitively diverse teams. I think that by focusing on individual supports, we're missing the opportunity to focus on the interactions and how to engineer interactions in teams to help those teams achieve the goals of the group and the organization. Second thing is making, everyone here in this session believes in the strengths-based approach. How do we make that strengths-based approach actionable? How do we create a template or a playbook for exporting that to organizations so they can eliminate the concept of accommodations? Because right now it's just we'll reluctantly change for you, maybe, and so like several others have pointed out, that culture has got to shift. The third thing is personal to our organization, and that is the inclusive agile approach that I introduced earlier. We've done it with a couple of organizations, but there's still plenty of work that's needed. We need to pilot it in organizations. It needs to be studied. The role of an inclusive approach to agile teams, how it can be continually improved, is a huge opportunity for improvement. So I'd like to put that out there as a potential opportunity for collaboration. We would love to partner with people to get that out into more organizations, and also to test the validity of the approaches and see what the impacts are on group and organizational productivity.
Yeah, that's really wonderful ideas, and Ultranauts is in a very special place in that your organization have been really one of the most concentrated spots with people on the spectrum, and right now with the pandemic, everyone is working remote, and when people are trying to learn how to work remotely, you guys have already got it figured out for 8 years. So you're ahead of the learning curve. That's really wonderful. So
Yeah, and just to add, Lawrence, it's
yeah,
interesting because we've had several organizations come to us for advice. Hey, we know you've been doing this for a while. What works? What doesn't work? Help us out. And so we've been really happy to do that too. So thanks.
yeah.
Um,
So
well,
Sandra, so for you, your role is very unique in that you're in academia and you have a lot of experience with the industry, uh, diversity and inclusion work. So
yeah,
what do you see the unique things that your organization can do, and what are some of the things that are difficult that you think we need more people putting our hands on?
yeah. So it's interesting, particularly hearing talking about that, academia, I suppose, need to come together, because we're starting to see that, and certainly with the Autism Friendly University, that model has now been adopted by many other universities across the globe. So I would encourage Hiran to maybe look at that, where universities have already started to kind of come together and share their practices. And I think, Lawrence, what we're finding from academia looking out into the workplace is that, because we are focused on universal design, and not just in DCU, by the way, this is across academia, what happens is we're creating environments that it's strength-based, right? That's the focus. And then what happens then is when the young person goes out into the workplace, it's a very different environment. And I think some of the things that both Michael and Hiran have spoken about around the concept of isolation and exclusion, and this can be very profound for particularly a young person going into a big probably 2,000-3,000 company, and to feel that they're on their own. And I think just from my conversations with Andrew Eddy recently, we talked about it's not okay to expect the person to understand what type of accommodations they need, because quite often they don't know, because they've come from an environment where they haven't had to ask for accommodations, because it's university designed. So the work we do in DCU and the work we do in Inclusio, and I know, Lawrence, we've already spoken about this, is how can we build the capacities of employers? How can we build capacity of the people managers and the team members to support the individual, so that that people don't have to disclose personal things or don't have to be asking, because the organization is a step ahead of them. And I think if I think about Inclusio as a tool, so we've been building Inclusio, and the focus really is on bringing science to metrics around diversity and inclusion and culture. And part of that is this strengths-based approach. And as we capture information from neurodiverse people in the organization, we bring those insights back to the organization, so that they can make an intervention and take some action to make more inclusive workplaces. So we'd be delighted, we're delighted to be part of this panel, and we'd be more than happy to show Inclusio if anybody would be interested in seeing a demonstration of what we've built over the last 4 years. Thank you, Lawrence.
So Colman, do we still have some time for Q&A?
Yeah, we've a few questions here, Lawrence. If I might address the panel, if that's okay. Just to say, there truly is a global village. We're getting questions from Cyprus, Scotland, Jamaica. So really, people have sent in the questions and let us know where you're coming from. It's brilliant. The first question here is for the panel. We find companies tend to know a lot of all their employees with ASD, but those with ADHD are unknown. So how do companies create a culture to allow disclosure in terms of the ADHD population as opposed to the ASD population? If anyone wants to take that.
Colman, it's Hiran. I'll start off, and I think it's very interesting. 5 years ago, when we saw a number of autism at work programs, and at EY, we were very deliberate to use the term neurodiversity. We realized that being much more inclusive is also recognizing the co-occurring conditions and the fact that individuals are very different. But I think it's important because in many cases, what's happening as we find in the, as the term neurodiversity becomes more known, there's almost an inadvertent exchange and usage of the word neurodiversity attached with autism. I think it's very important that we make sure, as Michael did at the beginning of his talk, when we talk about the umbrella term inclusive of ADHD, dyspraxia, dyscalculia, and others. And I think from a general public knowledge perspective, we could use our platforms and voices to make sure there's greater awareness and education of this. And I think that's a bit of what's lacking here. It seems as though most people understand and know about autism. They don't seem to know about the others, and there's just a lack of a bit of awareness. That's my perspective.
Lovely. Thank you very much. Sandra, a question for you came in. The Autism Friendly University Certificate, is that something that other universities can apply for, or how does that work?
Yes, Colman. So we worked, so that was a research that was conducted within DCU, but we worked on it with As I Am. So that's the autism charity in Ireland. But what's, you know, I suppose because of the research that's behind it, and you know, I think we're 3 years into it now in delivering on the principles. So particularly in Ireland, we've had universities in Ireland come and visit DCU, and we take them around and kind of show them what that looks like. And I know with Adam and his team and As I Am, there's many other universities across the globe now have started to work through the certification. So I think, like Kieran alluded to it, you know, we're starting to see employers, there's much more of an awareness that, you know, employers need to be more inclusive and reflective of their communities. And what academia are doing are starting to now come together and share. And I think, look, even today, you know, the last 2 days, you know, this conference, like this is, you know, probably the first of its kind, but it's fantastic and a great collaboration. And some of the people that are here today, like we've been having conversations and connections over the last couple of years, and to, you know, over the last 2 days, it's the kind of bringing all that together.
Thanks a million, Sandra. Michael, just a question about, you had mentioned about staff training and encouraging a sense of belonging. There's a question about the difference between fitting in and belonging, and obviously they're very different things, but how did the staff training work in terms of helping staff to become more aware?
Yeah, it's a good question about training. So when we first started, we spent a lot of time on the actual individuals that were coming into our program that were actually neurodiverse, trying to get them to fit in. Then we kind of actually reverse that in actually becoming more belonging. So we kind of ended up with, you know, because obviously we've been through this since 2012. So we've gone through a few iterations of this, if that makes sense. So it's kind of, it's something that it's actually involved. So we've kind of been very much focused now on more training around getting the environment to be be a bit more safe. So we actually try and create more safe environments to initially to build up capability. And then obviously what we're trying to do with the culture itself is get a lot more understanding of what neurodiversity is and a bit more awareness around what that is. And it's an ongoing kind of process. It doesn't start with, you know, it just, you know, you give a training course and that, you know, magically everyone kind of then just, you know, wakes up the next day and it's all inclusive. It's you know, everyone has, you know, hidden biases and even some of them are just not even just hidden, you know, it's a lack of understanding, and depending on even cultural, even ethnicity actually comes to play a part to it. I mean, to give you an example for Australia, there is no word in the Indigenous language for autism. So they actually called, in the Indigenous language, actually called funny people. So it's kind of going through, you know, there is actually no word for it. So if you have, so there's a lot of work to actually go in to actually bring those things into into actually an understanding. So it's actually a lot of work going through different cultures. So it's an ongoing process of inclusion. So I think it's, for us being nearly 8 years in, it's a constant level of training to actually make a culture by itself a little bit more have a bit more empathy. I think that's a good one, to have some values, and more empathy, more humility around things, and also in that, and then that starts bringing understanding into play. So we've kind of learned a lot through that.
Lovely. Thanks, Michael. There's another question here. It's a question in relation to the circumstances in Jamaica, and I think it's similar here in Ireland. They talk about the intense maybe involvement that young people get under the age of 18, but when they transition to adulthood, a lot of the supports drop off. And the question is to the panel: how do we best bridge that gap? And again, maybe we were spoken a little bit about this, but is there any particular guides in terms of ways that services can develop ways to better bridge the gap between the transition from childhood to adulthood?
Oh, maybe I'm happy to start with that. But I think the part of it is that we're all growing through this process. I mean, a lot of the early interventions or kind of focuses have been in really those, as Hiran said, K-12 kind of areas have been a big focus on, especially those early years. I think the elements now are really, in Australia, are really now focusing onto transition points. So we know the transition points are kind of critical in Australia. So that allows things such as transition between primary school to high school, from high school to actually work, and even now looking at work. I know a really great program is actually, if people don't know, is there's a called Project Promise in the New York State, which has really been a really exemplar in regards to transition between high school to higher educational work. So that's kind of, I think now people I know from our perspective, now people are a lot more focusing on those transitional points. That's from our point of view.
Thanks very much, Michael. Lawrence, I might hand back to you if that's okay, just to conclude. That's as much as we have time for from the panel, but thank you very much for your answers. It's fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you, Colman. So, today, I think we have learned so much from various different aspects. Even with only 1 hour, we have absorbed the wisdom from several really prominent experts in the field of neurodiversity at work from 3 different continents, 4 different time zones, and kind of like in the middle of the night for some of us. So I think the most important thing is that we are all really doing this from all different continents, and because this is the right thing to do, and there's so much innovation that each of your organizations have really contributed to the field. So with that, I just want to thank you all for really putting your brain power in this hour and many more hours in the future. And hopefully we can get more collaborations going. And thank you.